Hello, hello. We are live, and I have got a wonderful live stream lined up for you. I am going to be speaking with Fabien, and we are going to be talking about all things French insurance. So, if you are moving abroad, if you're already living here and you've got questions about health insurance or property insurance or auto insurance, we're going to dig in. So, before I jump in and before I bring Fabien on, I would like to I see there is somebody here, a couple of people here. Can you hear me? If you can, please type in the chat where you're joining from, what you're excited to learn about French insurance, so that I can make sure that you can hear me. All right. While you do that, Igami Glow says, yes, you can hear me. Before we do that, I want to introduce myself. I am Patricia Brooks. I am an American who moved to France in 2018. And now I help people who are ready to start a new chapter living in France or other places in Europe. And I help them to build that confidence and courage and the resilience that is required to be able to stay long term. And on this channel, I sometimes come live and I share information about moving abroad. And today we have an amazing guest. His name is Fabien. And I'm going to bring him on and I'm going to let him introduce himself. Who are you?
Well, what an introduction. Thank you, Patricia. Hi, everyone. Good evening outside because we're talking from France. So, as the name would suggest, my name's Fabien, and I'm the founder and managing director of Fab French Insurance. So, like we were saying right before we went on, the I've been doing this, helping English speakers, say, move to France insurance-wise since 2015, and we specializes with all sort of insurance. So, from the visa stage, insurances for visas, to the top-up health insurance once they're part of French healthcare, to, like you said, property insurance, car insurance, which could be tricky as an expat because there's a lot of things. Obviously, people consider that what they've experienced at home is the norm. And sometimes a bit tricky in that, but that's why we're here. So we work on magic, make sure everyone feels nicely tugged in France, and they accommodate with the French insurance culture as quickly as they Frenchly can.
Yes, thank you, Fabian, for that. Is it Fabian or Fabian?
Fabien. Oh, yes. That's why actually came up with Fab. Even my grandma calls me Fab. It's not that easy to pronounce this in English.
Okay, well, because the French pronunciation, right? All right.
Exactly. Fabienne sounds like the feminine version of my name. So Fab is easier to, yeah.
Okay. Can I call you Fab?
Of course. Yeah. That makes me fabulous. So, of course.
All right. Well, I just want to jump in the chat and see who we have joining. We've got Murda Brown joining from Florida, and we've got Laura,
So, good morning.
8674. We've got True Blessings from New Jersey. I grew up in Southern Jersey. And Murda Brown says she's familiar with you.
Oh,
And we've got Cynthia 9040, who's joining us from New York City, and says thank you
nice.
in advance. So, before we jump into the technical details of uh, insurance, I just want to get to know you a little bit better. Um, you shared with me that you're about to have your 11th anniversary with your company. And I'm just curious why you decided that you wanted to work with expats, English speaking expats moving to France and help them with their insurance needs.
Oh, that's a very, that's a very good question because I would love to come with like a Batman-like Inception story. Um, Honestly, that was pure luck. I was working in lead generation business, marketing agency, and I decided to do that for myself. It just happened that literally 2 weeks after starting the business in 2015, one of my very earliest leads that I got was a British woman that is the owner of an English-speaking forum for English speakers in France, which is called survivefrance.com. And I just happened to have her as a lead, and she was kind of struggling with her French. So I switched to English, and she said, "Oh, you can help people in English, and so you should come to my place." And also, it happened. She just happened to leave. No, she's moved, but she happened to live like 30 minutes from my place. So I went there, and she wanted to promote, well, me at the time, on a website, and we got literally hundreds of leads
Yeah.
right on, and it continued for months. So I was a bit overwhelmed, but then I saw the market and I discovered I've been an expat myself, but like working with, say, foreigners in France, the cultural difference, well, as like a salesman to a client, with so Brits and Americans, with like you share a very similar culture in that regard. You do value customer service a lot more than us, the French. And I honestly fell in love with that. And on top of that, very, very quickly, I also saw there was a gap because a lot of people out there, they're just sales agent. They just want to sell something to you, and no one really go the extra mile to try to help you. Like, for example, top of health insurance, mutuals. I mean, you're coming from a complete different system. I mean, they just want to sell you a mutual in France, basically. And so I saw an opportunity to, well, obviously sell products, but also help people understand how the system works, how that works, why the cultural differences, instead of saying, well, c'est comme ça, this is how it works in France, and that's it. And yeah, and it became my life mission now.
Yeah, the customer service aspect. And then you said that you'd been an expat yourself. Where did you live? And what was your biggest challenge in that?
Ah, wow. Well, I lived in the UK. So actually, 3 months in the US, well, getting a visa there was too complex. So I did not make it past 3 months at the time. And then I went to the UK, where I stayed for 1 year. And the main challenge was, well, wasn't the visa because the UK was still part of the EU at the time. So that part was easy. It was the culture and the language and the weather, because I'm from the south of France, so it's massively different. But that I could have accommodate with. But I was the language barrier and the weather. And I remember my dear friend Jamie, which is still a dear friend of mine, who was my business partner when I was in the UK at the time. We're talking 2014, right before I started his business. He kept on saying, English simple, because the way we think in French is completely opposite to the way you think in English. One of the main example is in French, there's basically a single word for everything. We even have a word for when you're throwing someone out the window, like defenestrer. It's like we have a
But
word for
yes,
everything.
yes, and we could go down that rabbit hole. There are some things, some words that there isn't a word for, or that there's the same word that means very different things.
But
So
what I'm saying here is that the logic, like the brain logic of the language, is completely different.
yes,
And for a while, I felt like a schizophrenic, because I felt like there's two version of me, and I still think this way though, because like there's the English speaking version of me and there's the French speaking version. If those are the same, it's actually when you don't speak
yeah,
the language properly, because you
yeah,
have to think differently.
yeah,
And that was the main struggle, honestly.
yeah.
But
But
that goes with the
look at you
culture.
now. Look at you now.
Yeah, you're too kind. I still struggle a lot. Yeah, yeah. With
No,
the idioms
you're
and the sayings mostly. And I keep on
oh,
learning new ones. Like you think I'm chopped liver? Someone told me that. I was like, what does that mean?
what do you mean chopped liver? But it's the same in French too, right? Some of your
Oh yeah,
expressions.
yeah. If my throat aches, I can say I have a cat in my throat, which yes doesn't make sense in English, but does in French.
Well, if you had a cat in your throat, it would hurt, right?
Yes, as you can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so now that we know a little bit about you, let's kind of shift gears and talk about insurance in France. Um, and let's start off with the health insurance that's required for people to get a visa. Can you share or explain what is required and what some of the mistakes people make in getting this kind of insurance?
Yes. So, well, theoretically, it's quite simple. Well, basically, if we need to sum it up in one sentence, you need to have something equivalent to French public healthcare until you're part of French public healthcare, which in French is called santé premier euro, or you'd call that in English a private medical insurance. This is basically what you need. The main mistake, is that a lot of people are kind of copy pasting what others have been doing or what they've seen on Facebook, because like that had worked for this guy, and so that should work for me. Is in the exact same situation or whatever, which very often is true. Don't get me wrong, but there's a key aspect that many people are missing, and unfortunately, we're seeing that literally on a daily basis because we're dealing with so many different nationalities. Is that the fact that something works doesn't necessarily make it compliant. That's why I started saying what is compliant is the equivalent of French healthcare. Everything else isn't. So I'll take an
Mm.
example. If you get travel insurance to use with your visa and you're from the US, that is probably going to work. And that is like a fourth of the price, literally a quarter of the price. But that is not technically compliant. And actually, for two reasons. Well, first, because it's travel insurance, not private medical insurance. And secondly, because, well, travel insurance does not cover you in your country of residence. That's in the terms of condition of any policies. And guess what you become when you have a French residency visa? A resident there. So if you have a big claim, you're not covered. So
Well, so I
because
want
of
to stop you there. I want to stop you there because that's what I came over on. I had travel insurance, and I think
yeah.
I don't know where I read that. Isn't that seemed to be in it seemed to be someplace pretty official. Did I misread that? Why is there this belief that that is okay?
So yeah. So two things here. Yes, there is a subcontractor, TLS, VFS, depends on where you're from. It's probably TLS that the French government subcontracts to in your country if you're in the UK or the US. And on the website, I think it's important to realize that this is basically the same website for all French visas. But what France does the most are not residency visas. It's what they call short-term visas. Basically, the residency type of visa is the VLSTS. And all the other visas, they're either what they call tourist visa. If you come from China, if you come from, or even if you're in the US, but you're Asian or whatever, like you're from a country where even as a tourist, you do need a visa, or something called the VLST, which is a non-resident type of visa. With all of those visas, the travel insurance policy is compliant because you're not a resident there, and that does work in that particular case.
Okay.
We're talking about more than 90%, like it's actually 98% of all visas that France is doing. So obviously, that's why on the official website, you will find links to get a policy from providers who offer that. Very often, the providers offer alternative plan, but you're going to the cheapest, obviously, and this is the travel insurance one. So that's where the confusion comes from. And again, very important, at the minute, there is also a political, I'd say, flexibility. So for example, in the UK, try to use travel insurance, that's going to be a hard no. They're not going to let you go, and they're not going to give you a VLSTS visa. But in the US, they will still accept it. So there is a very important information here as well. We are a French-based company. We're 100% French, 100% regulated in France. That means if you have any problems, if we've missed advice or whatever, you have a legal recourse against us. Even if you're using a US provider, you're no longer American. If you're American, you've used a US provider, you have zero recourse once you're in France. If something went wrong, you're all alone. So that comes with a price for us, not the premium, but with a price, which is, it's illegal, like literally, I may not go to jail for that, but I will suspend my license if I give the wrong advice to people. Not to speak badly of the competition, most of my competitors play fair. Some competitors won't hesitate to sell stuff that is non-compliant, but honestly, they're rare. Usually, when they're French registered, they will have to sell you something that's compliant. Otherwise, this is what we call the duty of advice. So that's why, well, although I could be selling travel insurance because I know it works, I also know it's not compliant. And if the political situation were to change overnight, which did happen during Brexit, when the Australia cancelled the submarine order with the French government, for example, and there's plenty of examples we've seen over time. And sometimes it's just like for 1 week, it's a bit tougher and then it gets back to normal. There's no way to say in advance if, well, the conditions can change overnight. So for all those
And you
reasons,
said,
I
well, let
prefer
me
to
stop you
lose
there.
clients.
Let
Yeah.
me stop you there. So you're talking about the political conditions changing, making the visa restrictions more strict, and they'll look and say, oh, well, this doesn't really fit the letter of what we need, or something else.
Well, no, it's exactly that. At the end of the
Okay.
day, the visa is a political tool. Look, like, for example, another example was Russia, obviously, and Russian countries, well, and Russian allies. Like when the war broke up, all of a sudden, visas were a lot harder, and they were looking at stuff like insurance, where they used to have more flexibility, and all of a sudden, they applied the rules by the book. So
Right.
that's why I'm saying we only sell 100% compliant solutions, and we're 100% based in France. So even if we did anything wrong or there's any problem, everyone has a legal recourse. So basically, there's safe and secure from A to Z. Any other option, well, not French, then you don't have those security. Even if they claim they've been doing this for years or whatever, yes, they may have worked for years or they may have seen others do that, but it is in no way any guarantee. And so that's why this is by far and large the top mistake that people are doing, copy pasting or believing people, I don't know, a German provider, a US provider, a British provider. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying they're not French. So they're not duty bound like we are. There's no legal recourse
Yeah,
if anything
that's
goes wrong, and the list goes on. And like I was saying, it also may not be a compliant policy in the first place, also if there is a political change. So you're basically piling up potential problems down the way.
right, right. And I want to go back to
Potentially.
something that, yeah, I want to go back to something you said that, that once you are living in France, once you have a resident visa, you are a resident of France. And so you're no longer a traveler. And that's the reason why, really, for a long stay visitor visa or a long stay visa in France, that does not qualify, or does not fit the requirement. Yeah. So just,
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah, just,
that's why I mean, as insurance advisors, our job is to make sure whatever happens, it's going to be 100% safe for the client. So that's why I was
yeah,
saying,
yeah,
unfortunately, sometimes we prefer to lose a client uh, rather to be taking risks, saying like,
yeah,
okay, if the French government gets some beef with the US government and overnight they decide to apply the
yeah,
rules a bit more strictly, then all of a sudden we will see our visas, and we take it so seriously. We have 100% money back guarantee, even if the visa is denied for other reasons, not the
mhm.
insurance. So basically, we're taking a risk here. So as we take, well, we're basically putting our mouth where our money is, or the other way around. I don't know, our
Yeah,
money where the
yeah.
mouth is. Yeah. So
Money where your mouth is. And so it's a matter of integrity. And I think that, you speak about, one of the reasons that you enjoy, working with Americans or English speakers is the customer service that you can provide. And integrity is a part of that. And so, thank
yeah.
you for, putting your money where your mouth is.
We only
Another
want those 5 star reviews on Google, and basically, I think we have one or two which aren't 5 stars. Sometimes we've had 4 stars with people said like literally like you've saved my life, and he gave like 4 stars, and like I don't know what I could have done better than.
maybe they didn't want their life saved.
Yeah, I should have saved 2 lives maybe.
Well, so one question that I've gotten recently in the last month and a half, is that I've had a couple of older people who are coming on a longer stay visa, or trying to, and they have found it challenging to find
Mhm.
private health insurance, private medical insurance, because they're over 75, they're 76, and it's cost prohibitive. Can you speak about that? Is it possible to get this private medical insurance after a certain age? And how can and can that is affordable, I guess is the question.
Mm. Well, honestly, I wouldn't have the prices off the top of my head because we do have like an aggregator, like a price comparison. This is what we
Hmm.
do. Fab French Insurance. There's
Hmm.
a price comparison website, so we compare policies. But I know that we have solutions up until 99 years old. So yes, this is doable. Usually, what we tend to be doing, the older people get to keep the prices down or low is to try to make sure we go with automatic exclusions rather than like a medical questionnaire or stuff like this, because well, because it keeps the price low. Like okay, existing conditions or prescriptions excluded, so it's going to be cheaper. But so
Hmm.
everything else is not. Like you get hit by a car, obviously it's not excluded. Or you have any other disease, like you have a heart attack, but like what you have, what's like Parkinson. You have Parkinson, but you have a heart attack. There's no connection with this. So things like that, you're going to be covered. But excluding things, existing conditions, helps us keep the premium low. There's other options where we can also try to get things covered, but usually, obviously, it skyrockets the premium. So that's usually our strategy, to try to keep the premium low and also have a solution for people a bit in the older age bands. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, great. That's helpful because people really want to come, and then they're like, oh, but and the other piece of that is so
And if they come from
resident.
you and they tell us, we'll be more than happy to give them a discount to kind of give them the extra nudge. So.
Okay, okay. Thank you. And so that leads into, well, you need this insurance to get the visa, but people have heard that, well, in France, there's this carte vitale that
Mhm.
any resident of France is eligible for. Um, can you speak about, that and how, like, how, when can somebody apply for that, and how long does it take for them to
Hmm.
actually be covered?
Actually, this is spot on question, because there's a lot of misunderstanding on this particular issue as well. For example, a lot of people come to us and say, oh, I only need insurance for 3 months for the visa, because they think they're going to be part of French healthcare after that. So there's a lot of, again, misassumptions here. So first, you need a 1-year insurance policy for it to be technically visa compliant. Although it's okay if it has a break clause or anything like that, but you do have to have a 1-year plan. This is part of the theoretical legal framework, because potentially by the end of the first year of your visa, you may not even be part of French healthcare, and they want to make sure you won't end up being a burden to French healthcare or French state. So that being said, and that being cleared out, you do need a 1-year policy, not a 3-month, not a 6-month, a 1-year. Break clause are okay, but you do need to have a 1-year policy. And then once you're in France, the average, the usual scenario is that once you've been around for 90 days, and that's very important because, well, maybe your visa got started on the 1st of January and 3 months later, which, joke aside, is the 1st of April, you could theoretically start applying into French healthcare. But maybe your visa got started on the 1st of January, but you only showed up on the 1st of February. So that's when it becomes a bit more tricky. Basically, you need to have been around for 90 days. Not necessarily consecutively, like you could have traveled, that's okay. But basically, you need to have been a resident or considered as such for 90 days in a row. Well, again, whatever you've been around or not. So just to be on average, it's when the visa got started that you've been around. But that could be different. So considering you showed up if you showed up before that though, unfortunately you were a tourist before, so it doesn't start the counter. It starts when the visa starts, or if you showed up at a later date when you showed up in the first place. So 90 days afterwards, thank you for the website link. 90 days afterwards, you can start applying to French healthcare. Unfortunately, this is one of the only remnants of the good old paperwork, like paper-based version. Like they say it's digital. Yes, you can download a PDF online, but you still have to send that over snail mail to French healthcare. And it varies massively because this particular process is processed at, well, we call that the departmental level, which would be in the US an equivalent of the county level or a shire if you're in the UK. You know, like basically at a small scale, not even a state level, like literally a county. You know, it's very small scale, and so because of that, it varies massively from one, well, county or French department to another. And the average delay I'm seeing, and it varies also on depending on the backlog they have and the seasonality, but on average, you can anticipate on like a 6-ish month, plus or minus 1 month. So 5 to 7 is not unusual, which means 8 to 10 months total from the date you arrive. So that's why you should definitely try to apply as quickly as you're eligible, because if you wait for too long, you may even lapse into your second year. And if you do that, if you're not part of French healthcare by the end of the first year, when you apply for your residence permit from France, they will want you to have renewed private medical insurance. So that's like a double penalty. And the prefecture, so the guys dealing with French residency, they're much stricter than the consulate. Like they will want private medical insurance, and they will make sure this is not travel this time around. So that's probably going to be more costly. So that's why it should be top priority to try to get into French healthcare. And this is a right you have. So get into French healthcare as quickly as you can. And on average, 6 months delay. Although, don't get me wrong, that's what I'm saying. It varies massively. I've seen people get into French healthcare in less than 3 months, so less than 6 total with the initial waiting period. And I've seen people, again, lapsed into the second years despite starting after 3 months straight. It really, really varies. Also, depending on your situation, they may require more or less documentation, depending on the department. So yeah,
Oh,
start as early
really?
as you can. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, like for
Wow.
example, these days, I'm getting feedbacks from clients where they used to accept birth and marriage certificate, even if they were like 1 or 2 years old or more. And now they want something apostille less than 6 months old in some departments. So it
Yeah.
slowed the process. But again, it seems to not be all, well, nationwide, but like, so be prepared, start as early as you can to save as much time as you can, because there's the best big incentive to not have to renew private medical insurance
Yeah.
onto the
Yeah.
second years, because the prefecture,
Absolutely.
that these guys, they're going to apply the rules by the book.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And so now we're talking about, the French healthcare system, the carte vitale. Um, all residents of France are eligible for that.
Mm-hmm.
And there was in the news recently that there was this loophole that some people who were residents of France were actually having the carte vitale, and they didn't have to pay. Has that loophole been closed? And can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, oh yeah, I think it's still a raging debate. It's not completely over. So yes, well, yes, it's been closed, but it's not completely over because we don't have all of the details yet. Basically, the general idea is that this is US specific, to be clear, because there is a tax treaty between France and the US that is very specific, which basically makes France a tax haven for US retirees, because there's absolutely no taxation on our retirement income from the US in France. So that means we had a lot of American who could move to France and benefit from all of French, well, public services, and including healthcare, without paying any taxes there. Yeah, some politicians picked up on the loophole, indeed, and said, okay, they should be paying something. So the thing is, there was already a tax for people in that exact situation, which is called the CSM tax, and is made for example, landlords who don't pay social charges in France, even if they're French. I mean, and so this was made for those guys, and it's been extended to expats who were not paying any sort of social charges or taxes in France. The problem with the CSM tax for Americans, first, in a way, it was kind of a bit of a contradiction with the tax treaty, And so it seemed to have been applied very discretionarily, which is like you're not supposed to do that. And that was also kind of a big tax, like a 6.5% tax, although there was a deduction. But so they've said, okay, we will come up with something much more clear and to give people a lot more clarity. So there is going to be a tax for people not paying. Well, again, it is US specific because it could only happen for Americans because only Americans had this exemption of taxes on retirement income, which was unique for France. So for those guys who end up paying zero taxes in France, there's going to be a tax. The amount is not yet official, so that's what I'm saying. Yeah, they closed the loophole and it's been voted in. We just don't know how much yet. From what I'm hearing, although the band vary massively, it should be a lot less than the former 6.5%. But I cannot tell. Maybe they'll tell you 0.5. Maybe it's going to be a flat tax or flat rate, or maybe it's going to be 3%. I don't see that being more than 3% though. So
okay,
and there's going to be a deduction for sure. Yeah,
3% of their retirement income, or 3% of what?
Yeah, of income made. Yeah, and that, but that's why some people moving to France only have savings. Also, that's why I think that rather be leaning towards actually something that's very similar to what the Spanish are doing themselves. It is a flat rate in Spain, like they charge you a flat fee. And I think that would make more sense. But honestly, at this stage, I don't know.
All right.
What is for sure as well? Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, what is for sure is they're going to apply. There's going to be a floor as well. Like if you're not making enough, it's probably still going to be for free. But as the visa is very often tied to you making some level of income, so that's what I'm saying. Americans probably will have something to pay, but those with very low income or with savings only, I don't know yet. But so to be seen. It's not going to be this year, I don't think. But for those moving this year, for next year, it's probably going to be something. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And so, you don't have any sense of when they're going to come to a determination on that?
Usually, well, this is just my gut feeling at this stage. I'd say June, July, probably.
Oh, okay.
But that might be 2028. Honestly, this is France we're talking about here. So, with paperwork, you never know.
I know. I'm a project manager. I want timelines.
That's So yeah, exactly. Your experience is firsthand, indeed.
Yeah. So, can you talk a little bit about, we talked about the private medical insurance necessary for the visa. Then after 3 months of being here in France, when you're a resident, you can apply for the carte vitale. But the carte vitale doesn't pay for 100% of everything. So that leads me down to what you can do so that you can cover what isn't paid by the carte vitale.
Yeah, well, actually, it's very interesting because so there is indeed something that's French specific. We call it mutuelle, a mutuelle. So because this is a mutualistic fund, which is technically in English, you could call that top-up health insurance, but this is kind of an alien concept anyway. So basically, it is indeed something topping up the refunds from French healthcare. Well, as we don't want this to last 2 hours, I won't go into too much details as to how the French healthcare system works. No, but even the French native, to be honest, even the French native don't understand how the French system works. They just know that if you have a mutuelle and a carte vitale, there's always going to be an option that's completely for free. That's all the knowledge that even the locals, the natives would have. Like they don't understand the system either, but they know that with a carte vitale and a mutuelle, you go to your GP or your general practitioner and you ask for a free option, there's always going to be one. Or there's like a €2 deductible. Let's say it's free. Although it went from €1 to €2, and we did protest massively for that like a few years back. So for us, it's like a euro is a euro, okay? So I'm saying it's for free because from where you're coming from,
yeah,
it's to say that, but the French would not say it's for free. It's like no, we're paying €2 at a time. But so yeah, you always have an option for free. including dentistry, glasses. So sure, there's also going to be options you probably don't want. Like for dentistry, you probably don't want the metal base crown. So if you go for the ceramic base or something fancier, that's not going to be for free. But then that's also the job of the mutual. So that's why you have like cheap mutuals who are just going to cover the bare minimum and make sure you have a free option. Or you're going to have more comprehensive mutuals who are going to be able to cover more advanced options. And that's why also you have mutuals focused on dental, glasses. Then it depends on, what's your main worry. Personally, I think you have the best for your money when you have like strong hospitalization cover, which is quite cheap in France. And you can leave pretty much else at the bare minimum and pay out of pocket. You probably end up saving a lot of money doing so. Also, one of the main benefits of a mutual that people rarely speak about is that you won't have to pay in advance most of the time. If you don't have a mutual, even at the hospital, they could charge you up front. Sure, you'll get refunded, well, for the most part of it, but it may take weeks. And if you have a mutual, you pretty much never pay up front. The mutual acts as a third party paying on the behalf of French healthcare. So basically, whomever you're seeing is going to charge the mutual, who's going to, in turn, claim onto French healthcare. If there's anything left to pay, anything else left to pay, then you're being sent the invoice. But then you avoided paying up front the big bill, which was quite a good. I mean, technically, if you feel like it's nothing, but it's quite a convenience outside.
Yeah. So the mutual is there to kind of make you more whole, like, from what the card
Yeah,
would cover.
usually there's this misconception that the French healthcare pays 70%. It's correct. The percentage is correct, but it's also incorrect. It's not 70% of what you're going to pay. It's 70% of the French public healthcare index for whatever you're trying to claim against. Like, for example, a consultation with the doctor is 30 euros. So they're going to refund 70% of that. But if you go see a higher hand specialist, like a heart doctor, the index is 50 euros, and they're probably going to charge you 90 or something. So there is a disconnection between the consultant fee and the index. And then that's why it gets tricky. So even if you have 100% mutual, you're only going to get refunded 50 euros, not 90 that you've paid. So that's what I'm saying. We don't have 2 hours. I won't deep dive too much, but you always have a free option if you ask for it. And the mutual is here to top it up, but you can top it up to the index or to a higher level. That's why you have different prices for mutuals and also quality of service. But again,
Yeah.
we don't want to
Yeah.
deep that dive.
Yeah, we're not right. And so the mutual, in my experience, has been, as an American, has been pretty affordable.
Oh yeah,
What can you share, like a range of, something that's really basic and something that's.
yeah. Well. There's no ceiling. So it could be so. But if you, for example, let's say someone in the 50s, well, let's say 54. Okay, just 54. That would start at, I don't know, probably around 60 euros a month, something like that. Maybe a bit less than that. There's so many different options. It's just off the top of my head, but ish. That's probably something like that. For what we call a contrat responsable, so something that covers everything 100%. Maybe with even like a bit more stronger cover for hospitalization on that price point. And if you want something that includes a lot more a stronger dental coverage, for example, and stuff like that, you'd probably be looking like 120, 130, something like that. But like I was saying, that's why usually my advice, and especially for Americans and Brits, because you're so used to be paying for dental and glasses out of pocket anyway, like just save the money and pay out of pocket when you need it, which is, well, hopefully for you, it's not going to be on a monthly basis. So the savings alone should definitely make it. But also the good thing with the mutual, it's not like private medical insurance. This is hence the name. There's no medical questionnaire. There's no age bands. Well, it's age based, the premium, but there's no exclusions. Like you could literally have something scheduled or lined up, get the mutual and claim on it the day after, There's a few stuff where there is a waiting period, but yeah, again, there's no medical questionnaire.
Mhm. Yeah. Good. That's
So basically,
great.
they're topping up whatever the French healthcare is paying. If French healthcare is paying for that, they're gonna have to top it up.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. And feel free to ask questions because that's what Fabien is here for, to answer your questions. I want to shift gears from the medical insurance to other types of insurance that people might need, expats might need in France. Auto insurance. So when I first went, well, 18 months in, I decided I was going to get a car, and I did not have a French license then. And the big question I had was, oh, will I be able to get insurance here in France? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Oh
What people
yes,
need to do in order to get insurance?
and that there's been a massive crackdown actually from French insurers on this particular issue in the past couple of years, actually. So which state were you from? You said?
Virginia.
Oh, Virginia. Okay, okay.
Mhm.
It's a very good state to be from when moving to France because we do have a reciprocal agreement with Virginia. On our website, there is I've made an infographics with all of the states in the US and those who do have an agreement and those who don't. But basically, so the problem is, well, depends if you come from a state that does have an agreement or not. For example, unfortunately, California doesn't, but Florida does. So it has nothing to do with the political color, I would say, of a state. Texas does have an agreement as well. So it really, really nothing to do with the current political color. But the the presence or not of an agreement does change things. So if you're from the UK, for example, there's no problem. Like you can exchange your license easily. You do need to exchange your license within the first year. So you could get a French insurance or a French vehicle insured with the first year with, for example, your American license, even if it's not exchangeable for a French one. Okay, don't get me wrong. It is a lot trickier these days. We can still do that, but it is doable. Like a lot of insurers in France will give you a hard time if you come with a US license nowadays, exchangeable or not. Again, we can still do that, but it became a bit of a rare skill to have. So, but they will make sure that you have exchanged it by the end, well, before your contract renews. And if you didn't, you're done for trouble. So that's why if you're from a state that does have agreements with France, it's probably going to be easy for you to get the exchange done. If not, you'll have to go through the test again, or more likely. That's why a lot of Americans actually nowadays, they're kind of changing states before they move to France. Like if they know people, for example, I don't know, they're from California, but they know people in Florida, they kind of virtually move to Florida before they move to France so that they can get a Floridan license, which is a bad example because there's a bit of a waiting period with the DMV in Florida, but you get the point.
Yeah,
They try to get
yeah,
the license exchanged to a state that does have an agreement. Illinois doesn't have a waiting period, for example, so that would have been a much better example in this scenario.
yes,
But this is
yeah,
why it's very, very important to have anticipated on the driver license. Also, depending on the insurance company you're going to be using, some are more flexible than others in insurance discount or insurance history conversion. You may not feel it, but basically, maybe you are or were eligible for, I don't know, like a 50% discount, which is the maximum one in France, when you first got a French policy. Whatever the discount you've been provided with by the first provider you meet, if they got it wrong, there's no way to fix that because there's a French central database. So that's why the first insurance companies you're going to be, first company you're going to be using is so damn important. And also, there's a lot of companies out there who are going to claim they can deal with English speaking expats. And once you're a client, and there's no way to backtrack on, you've signed the policy, because in France, it's all based on declarative statements. And so once the policy is on, they actually ask for official translation of your history, which often costs hundreds of dollars. And so it's kind of leaves a bitter taste. Again, it used to be a lot easier. It's a lot more difficult nowadays. I mean, obviously, this is our line of work, so it's still super easy with us. But that's what I'm saying. It's not as easy as it used to be. So Well, good for me. Even more important nowadays to be working with, well, if not with us, with people like us, because you have to work with people who are really used to be working with expats, and like not just a few, like really used to be working with guys coming from wherever you're coming.
Yeah, yeah. And I have to underscore, if you're coming from a state that has the exchange, do it in the first year.
Oh yes,
I
yes, same.
because
Nowadays they're much more strict with that. Yeah.
yeah, I kind of I squeaked by. I think my first visa was not necessarily even. I think it was a year long visa. I think maybe it said tourist on it, but it didn't. It, anyway, I was able to do it, but I sweated bullets. I sweated bullets because I'm like, oh. And then COVID came in, and that kind of delayed that. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to have to take that exam. So, yes, I just want to underscore that. So, there's a question from Bernadette. Hi, Bernadette. Welcome. What is the waiting period once you buy a mutual?
Okay. Like I was saying, there's basically none, except for some specific things. Like if you, for example, dental cares, if it's obvious that that was planned before, they may put like a 3 month waiting period. It very, very rarely exceeds 3 months when there is one. For consultations, accidents, emergencies, prescriptions, there's no waiting period, never.
Mm-hmm. So
So
3 months, but 3 months if there is one.
yes, yeah, but that's why I insist. For most, there's none. There's not going to be a waiting period, but
Mm-hmm.
for those who have a waiting period, it's going to be worst case scenario 3 months. Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. Um, and Wanda has a question. Where do you go to exchange your driver's license?
Short answer is the French government has a website to start the process. So you start the process online. This is this is mostly a digital process. Obviously, then it depends on the supporting documents you need. They one key thing to know, you will have to get rid of the original license. I don't know where, but I've heard some people say, pretend you've lost the license in the US, and so you keep your US license. Yep, the French government, they keep track of everything, including, this is why we have a reciprocal agreements. Once they do the exchange, they inform the state you're from that they've exchanged it, which means it voids the license. So even if you kept like the plastic card, if you go back to the US with it and you get pulled over, this is an expired license. But just to be clear, it's a process you do online. There's a portal called servicepublic.fr, and it will link you into, I'm sure I didn't do it. I have a direct link in my computer, but you Google driver license exchange France, it will send you to an English written page, by the way, and then in turn to a page where you can start the process online.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, thank you. And I just one other question about the auto insurance. One thing that my insurance agent said to me to get was the breakdown clause, that even if I'm in a certain mileage or kilometers of my house or apartment, I need to
Mm.
I need to opt into that, so that if I break down, 5 minutes from my house, that the breakdown service is covered.
Yeah, it's something, well, in English that I think you would call home start. I mean, basically, I'm against selling anything that's not home start. So like basically, it's, like I don't want it to have angry customers. like just to save a few pennies. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So we
So that,
always
yeah.
say home start, roadside assistance policies. Yeah.
Okay.
And in France, it's all packaged up with actually the for example, the vehicles insurance policy. So like you're buying, for example, the motor policy. Well, you can get rid of the assistance, but you rarely can buy the assistance on its own. It's kind of packaged up into the motor insurance.
Yeah. Great, great. Okay, we got some more questions coming in. Um, would you have a breakdown or list of the states that have an agreement? Thanks from
I do.
Colorado.
Yeah, well, Colorado does have an agreement. This is actually the most western state that does have an agreement. Anything else western to Colorado doesn't, unfortunately. Actually, western and northern.
Yeah.
Um, well, honestly, there's not that many. There's Delaware, Maryland, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, South Carolina, difficult to say, Massachusetts, yeah, difficult this one, New Hampshire, Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Colorado, Florida, and Connecticut. All the states.
Thank you. I love hearing you pronounce the American states.
Some are a bit of a struggle for me. Yeah, yeah.
Massachusetts, yes. All right, thank you for reading that off. And there is a website you can go to as well to
Well, if you
find.
go on the French, yes, on our website we do have a blog page on this, and it's just that we've done an infographic. This is visual. Otherwise, on the French website to exchange a license, when you type in your site, it tells you if it's exchangeable or not.
Question: is
No,
there an age limit? No.
no, there's none. Although this is recent, but like same as the US and the UK, like the license does expire. They used to not expire. The license expires, so they need to be renewed. But it's at the very least 10 years, could be 20 years. Like mine is 20 years. So yeah, like
Okay.
it
And
does
then
need to be renewed, but yeah.
when it expires, and if you're over a certain age, do you have to, is there some sort of test that you have to
No,
take? No?
no.
Okay. All right.
No, the road is the test. If you get too many accidents, maybe you should stop driving, but otherwise it's cool.
Yeah. And 60 is not that old. I'm almost 60.
Yeah, in
um,
France, people live very, very often way past 80. So that's even like, I'd consider that young here. Yeah.
okay. So this is sounds like a buy signal. Can we go through Fabien for any assistance on any insurance, driver's license exchange,
Yeah,
etc.?
sure. Like I like to say, we obviously, any kind of insurance, this is our specialty. We also have, like, our team is basically, to one exception, it's important we have one French person, but almost everyone is an expat here. Well, not to me, no longer, but there's one member of the team, two members are from the UK, one's from Ireland, one's from the US. So members of our team, basically, they do speak your language, wherever you're coming from. We don't have an Australian, but pretty much wherever you're coming from, almost. And yes, and very often we're more than happy to support you. So we will get back in touch. Random example, but yes, if we sell motor insurance to you and you do need to exchange a license, we'll inform you that you need to exchange a license. And we have a dedicated rep, customer service, we call him. His name is Lee. We'll get back in touch after a few months to see if everything's right, if there's any issue, and if you need any assistance. So just to be clear, we do not do anything ourselves, but we will help you get things done. Well, unless you require us to do some actual work, which, like, we're an insurance company, okay? So like we won't like fill in a form for you, but we can guide you or put you in the right direction. For us, it's part of the customer service. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I have not said this. Be sure to like this video because this helps with the algorithm. More people will see it. So please, if you haven't done that, please do that. We've got another question, and I know we haven't even touched on like home insurance or renters insurance, and I do want to just kind of talk about that briefly so that we've covered off on the major parts of that. Well, maybe we'll do that now, and then we'll get the last couple of questions answered before we wrap up. All right. So there are other insurances out there. There's home owners insurance, renters insurance. Can you share a little bit about the biggest challenges in getting those insurances, or what people need to look out for?
So to our core, we're an insurance brokerage company. Okay. So at the end of the day, what we do is compare insurance policies, which is what they want to be doing. Uh, the difference is going to be, and I'm going to answer your question. You see where it's going. Um, the first year or years, it's more about finding a solution rather than comparing or shopping around, because sometimes it's actually harder than it looks. Once you've been around for 3 years and more, you're like everyone. Okay. You're French, basically. So you will have access to all of the policies, pretty much whatever you're considering. Your situation is not normal unless obviously there's something very specific in your case, but usually it's not the case. I'm saying this because the only exception to what I've said is property insurance, so renters insurance, landlords insurance, so whatever you. This is a very standard policy, whatever you're an expat or not. The only difference is the presence or not of a euro bank account. I would say French because Cocorico, but it could be any bank account in the eurozone. You will find out that this is one of the main cultural differences, because the French, well, we love we're in love with direct debits.
Mm.
And like, if you want to find a policy that does not come with direct debits, it's actually going to be a challenge. Or, and actually I should say, and because it's almost certain you're going to pay more to not actually have a direct debit. There is a reason for that. The French are notoriously undisciplined. So pretty much all policies are automatically set up on automatic renewals. And to make sure the policy is going to be renewed and you're going to pay for it, that's why they want the direct debits. Because it's certain you're going to be debited, the policy is going to be renewed. This is one of the main mistakes a lot of expats are doing, like trying to prevent the debit from happening. This is legal in France. Like, if you stop the debits and think, okay, I'm not paying, I'm no longer insured, I don't care. No, yeah, well, the bailiffs, they're going to send the bailiffs to your doorstep. And if you did that for car insurance policy, for example, it's going to leave a trail into the central insurance database, meaning that any subsequent policies you're going to do, the new insurance company is either going to know straight ahead or is going to catch up on the situation eventually. And that's going to make subsequent premiums a lot higher. So this is serious business in France. Things needs to be properly cancelled, not the odd way, and needs to be anticipated on. The good news is it's a lot more flexible than in other countries. Yes, this is French, so it's bureaucratic. Usually the new insurance company helps you do that, okay? So you don't have to worry about the paperwork. They will do it for you. But the good news is you're only committed to that first year. Once the policy gets into its second year, whatever you're talking, property insurance, car insurance, the mutuelle, you can pretty much cancel it whenever you want. There might be a waiting period, but it's like a month usually. And then the new insurance company is going to take over. You don't have to wait. Even if you've paid yearly, like a one-off payment, which is never a one-off, because again, it's going to be automatically renewed anyway. But if you've paid as a one-off lump sum, and you've just 2 months into the renewal, they're going to refund you the 10 months you haven't used. Okay, this is mandatory. So in a way, it looks rigid, but it's actually very flexible. It's just a very bureaucratic process, but it is made to make sure you're going to remain insured, and also going to make sure that every penny you've paid for insurance, you're going to get back if the policy gets canceled.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, obviously you've had experience with people canceling the direct debit. Like for me, that's something that is like, okay, I hate that. I would write the check. I would be disciplined. And so it's good to know that, okay, I'm not alone in that
Oh
feeling.
no.
Like I just want to have more, I want to know, I want to sit down, write it, and not have the surprise of, oh, there wasn't enough money in that account, right? Ugh.
And honestly, but this is why we love direct debit. I mean, and pretty much any French native would pay as much as they can with direct debits. It's like we have a weird
Oh.
relationship with those, but I
Whoa.
think originally it's probably because of the price. Like the banks aren't charging anything, whereas with a card there is like the card's fee.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think this is maybe the origin story, but I don't know.
yeah. So Laura has another question. Sorry for all the questions. No, thank you. Thank you. I love them. Is there an equivalent of the triple A, which is the automobile, I don't know what it is, of America or something like that?
No, well, yes and no. There are some associations or foundations in France to protect drivers' rights. Um, but there's none that's directly. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, France is much smaller, so there's no direct equivalent. I've personally used one of those when I had a litigation back in the days. Honestly, it's weird to say that. Usually, your insurance company is the first one who can probably help you out because they know the law, they know your recourses. Very often, you have something in your contract that can help, like appeal a decision or use a lawyer or an assessor or whatever. So again, all the like, if you needed any other proof that you have to work with an English-speaking advisor or broker, this is one of those. But the closest equivalent would be something called 60 millions de consommateurs, like 60 millions of buyers, I suppose. That's the way to translate that. But this is the name of the biggest association in France that protects consumers' right. It's not just drivers' right. That the driving stuff is one of the segments of the things that they do or
What
cover.
is
Yeah.
it called? 60
60
millions?
millions, yeah, 60 millions de consommateurs.
Okay.
So, well,
I'm
60
writing it
million of
down.
buyers or consumers, 60 million consumers, yeah. Because when they created the foundation, that was 60 million people in France.
Okay. So it's been a while. Okay. All right. So that's a good question. We got two more questions and then we're going to wrap up. Can any European driver's license work living in France, or do you still need to obtain one that is from France?
Very good question. Good news is any EU license works. Yes. With obviously just a small nuance to add here. Should that license expire at some point, and should you be in France at that point, then you will need to, well, renew it for a French one. Not like, let's say you have like an Irish license and you're in France when it expires, you cannot renew it. You're not supposed to renew it in Ireland. You're supposed to renew it in France and therefore have a French license.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And
But unless it expires, it is valid. And just as a sub note, because this is a very interesting one, we do have a post-Brexit agreement. Any UK license that was obtained, not renewed, obtained prior to Brexit is considered valid in France. So basically, unless you pass the driving test post-Brexit, your British license is going to be valid in France.
okay. And I think there's a clarification on the question about AAA. Yeah, so what we were talking about earlier about making sure that there's a clause in your auto insurance, like if you break down, if your car doesn't, you're in your driveway and your car doesn't start, that's what we were talking about, and it's bundled into the auto insurance. So there's that.
Yeah, you don't buy that
Yeah.
separate. Good question. Yes, yes. No, yeah, that's what I was saying. I know it's custom in UK, US, and a lot of English-speaking countries to buy these services or assistance services as a side policy. Well, it technically does exist in France, but people never do that. Like it's either going to be bundled if you buy a new vehicle, they're going to include some sort of assistance in the first year, and or is going to be part of the auto insurance or like motor insurance policy. I always advise to get that bundled into the insurance policy. It costs like 50 euros a year, and you have a home start roadside assistance. So and breakdown cover. So whatever happens, flat tire, you run out of gas or whatever. Even if that's your fault, they're gonna come. They're gonna send a tow truck. Biggest mistake, actually, we're talking tow trucks. Biggest mistake people do with those is they call the tow truck directly, though. Don't do that. Never do that. And actually, it's to your benefit because, well, first, the garage probably doesn't speak English. Call the assistance hotline. They do have English speakers there, and they will dispatch a tow truck wherever you are. It's only if they don't have a local solution that they'll tell you to actually call the tow truck directly, but it almost never happens. And if you don't do that, like you don't call the assistance number directly, they may deny the claim. So they may actually not refund the tow truck. So you call the assistance, they're going to speak English, so it's better for you, and it's going to be for free.
Yeah, gotcha. I'm going to put your link to your website in the comments so people can just copy that. So there's that. And then we've got one final question, and that is, I think it's this one. Does vehicle insurance go down for premiums if you go years with a good driving history?
Yes, actually, the French system is interesting. I mean, we could have done with a simple system that wouldn't have been French, so we decided to create something very complex. But yes, the general idea is that every year, well, there's probably a way we can convert your driver history and the maximum discount. So it's basically a discount-based system. Like there is the raw premium, okay, and the gross premium, and then they apply a discount. Maybe no discount, may even be a penalty if you're a bad driver. But if you're in that scenario, we say you have no history. It's very easier, so you start fresh. But we look at the history. If you've had 13 years without a claim, this is the maximum discount you can get in France, and that gets you to a 50% discount. So the logic is very simple. We've created, well, no, it's not simple, but it's easy to follow up. We only look at the past 3 years, and we've created a bit of an index. So it starts at 1, no discount. We multiply the premium by 1, and every year without a claim, we multiply the index by 0.95, basically giving you a 5% discount. And obviously then this discount will add up onto each other up until you reach the stage where you have a 0.5 index, which is a 50% discount on your premium. This is the maximum you can get. If you get to that stage and you stay without a claim for 3 years, you even get a protected no claim without paying anything extra, meaning that the first time you have a responsible claim, it's not going to affect your discount. It's only if you have 2 in a row. So that's pretty much how the French is. And if you have a claim, if it's non-responsible, it doesn't change anything. Just you won't get extra discount this year because you did have a claim. Just it won't affect the discount. If you have a responsible claim, then it will actually multiply by 1.25. So basically increase the premium by 25%. And like I was saying, there is a central database. So it's not just your insurance company is going to keep track of that. They're going to carry out this index from one insurance company to another. So you start, if you have a bad driver history, you start fresh when you come to France. If you have a good driver history, we will convert that so that you get the best index, the best discount you can get. And then it's going to be carried around from one company to another.
Yeah,
Hopefully
great.
that answers the question.
Yes, very well. And Rider Skater has asked, I think we answered this already, but I just want to
No,
make
there's none. Yeah, there's none.
right. Okay. So, Fabien, this has been really interesting. More interesting than I anticipated. I thought, oh, insurance? Oh, I don't know.
Now we made insurance sexy, yeah?
So just I dropped your website in the chat so people can copy and paste that, go to your website if they're interested in working with you. Here's your website on the screen. So when they go to this website, can you share, what's there, how they'll, engage with, with the website?
Yeah, well, obviously they can message us on the contact form. There's our landline, a way to reach out over the chat box, or various online calculators, because we do believe in transparency as well. The French do not like online calculators. Actually, very few companies provide us with a way to put their offers onto aggregators. So we're putting out there as much as we can. But whatever we do ask us for a manual quotation. Like basically do ask us to challenge the own quote that we've made online. There's often, not always, but there's often a way to even find a cheaper policy. So actually just using online calculators in France probably don't get you the best you could get, because most of the good companies, they don't want to have the prices online in France. So it's probably to protect, though, the local market, I suppose. But
Yeah.
So get in touch with our other websites. There's loads of ways you can get in touch, whatever you prefer. You can book a consultation with one of our agents. We're trying to match where you're from so that you speak with an American person or a British, depending on where you're from. And there's the usual emails, contact form, and all, the usual.
Yeah, great, great. Well, thank you for that. And I
Thank you.
just want to share that the logistics of moving to France and is really important. And for insurance, Fabian's your person. He's fab.
Good one. Yeah.
um, and for the mindset work, for building the courage to actually take the leap, for building the mindset and the resilience that is required for you to get here and stay here and be happy here. That's where I come in. And I offer one-on-one coaching, group coaching to that effect. And if you feel like, yeah, I want to do this thing, but it feels really scary, I'm not sure I can do it, then hop on a discovery call with me and definitely take advantage of that. It is complimentary, and you can go to thecouragecatalyst.com/future expat. I can drop that in the chat as well. And if you're curious whether or not you have the mindset already, I do have a quiz on my website. You can check that out as well. That is thecouragecatalyst.com /quiz. Take that and see where you where you fall for your mindset for move abroad. All right. So, can't speak and type at the same time. There we go.
Makes me feel good because women are usually a lot better than I am to multitask. I'm a total mess if I try to do that.
All right. So just drop that in the chat as well. Once again, I want to thank everybody for coming, commenting, engaging. Um, it's been wonderful, great information. Thank you, Fabien. And we've got some thanks in the chat here too.
Thank you
Thanks. Your
so much.
presentations are always spur other considerations when moving to France. Thank you so much. This was awesome. Thank you for all the great information. So
Thank you,
have a great
Patricia.
rest of
Thank
your
you,
day.
everyone, for watching.
Yes, you take care. Take care, everybody.
Bye. See you
Bye-bye.
soon. See you soon in France.